after this hometown, complete 180. I was like, absolutely not. Don't pick.
Hi, we're Julie and Kelly, and we are here to find love. We're getting into a Bachelorette recap of Gabby and Rachel season 19, episode 7. This week's episode was a super critical turning point in hometown dates. It's usually pretty boring every season, but this season, holy crap, I feel like we learned so much about these men and we desperately needed this information. If you're new here, welcome. We're two dating coaches who analyze the psychology and dating themes in reality TV shows, especially The Bachelor and Bachelorette. So if you're into this kind of stuff, hit that subscribe button and follow along to join the conversation.
We'll talk about all of Rachel's guys and Rachel's hometowns first, and then we'll get into all of Gabby's guys and Gabby's hometowns. So Rachel took 4 guys to hometowns. It was Zach, Tyler, Tino, and Aven. Aven's hometown was not included in this episode. It'll be kind of tucked into next week's episode. Starting off with Zach. Zach was Rachel's first hometown. To me, overall, it went super well. They were really sweet. It had just such, real like boyfriend girlfriend energy to me. Like they really just seemed to be super into each other, super happy. For me, the main thing, or at least the storyline that seemed to be being pushed to us during their hometown, was it felt like they were teasing this idea that Zach is like so in love and so vulnerable. Like he's so in love with Rachel, and like the risk is that he's more in love with her than she is with him. That to me felt like what the narrative was. And it may very well end up being true. I don't know. I don't know if they're teasing that to us to like trick us, or if they're teasing that to us because, they're letting us know that Tino's gonna be the victor here. So
That's a really astute observation. She just so neatly and beautifully fit into his family that it was like, wow, there are no red flags. It felt like very equal and reciprocal on both sides, that they're into each other, that like his family just totally embraced her. And there are so many cute moments in their particular time together that made me think, okay, if she chooses him, she's making a really good decision. Before, I did like Zach a lot, but it showed me, okay, they have something there, like their chemistry is super, super strong.
Yeah, I completely agree. Of all of the guys, Zach is the only one who got 2 one-on-one dates, right? He had one at the very beginning. He was the first one-on-one date.
Good point.
And then he had a second one right before hometown. So Zach is actually the person of all the guys that she has actually spent the most time with. And so, yeah, today I feel like at this hometown this week, it was a very solidifying moment for them. Zach said he's in love with her. He just said in love, not falling in love. He was just like, I'm in love with you. And Rachel said she's falling in love with him back. And so, yeah, that's progress. It's always a big deal, especially when a lead uses the word love. So for me, Zach is still my number one. I still think that she should pick him. And I still think that like the big question mark is like, is she going to pick him? Because, I think she might be way too pulled toward, Tino to really be able to see how good a match Zach is for her.
I agree. I think Zach is the right choice, the good choice, and Tino is like an exciting choice. Maybe it's like her Bachelorette fantasy of being chosen so completely to the point of possession.
Right.
Zach just feels like a steady, secure attachment, which I just want all of us to aspire towards.
Okay, so let's move on to Tyler. I don't think anyone's hometown week went worse than Tyler.
I'm not falling in love with you. I am so in love with you, and it has just been incredible.
I don't know if I'm ready to meet your family.
That was, oh my God, that was tragic. That was painful.
I personally have some strong feelings about this. First of all, I just have to give myself a pat on the back, because is this not exactly what I said last week about Tyler? I was like, I feel like Tyler is chasing this girl he doesn't even know. They haven't had a one-on-one date. There's no substance to their relationship. And then as soon as Rachel got into this hometown, she was like, wait, I don't know anything about this guy. And I was like, Rachel, you should listen to me.
She needs you in her ear.
I know. As soon as that scene started, I was like, oh my God, I felt so good about myself. Okay. Moving on from that.
I actually thought that when she started to freak out, I just thought, oh my God, Kelly totally predicted this last week. And it's so true. She's had 0 time of this guy. I can see her like progressively getting so uncomfortable of his attention and how much he was, it's not like he was acting, but it's like, where are these feelings coming from? Like, do you know me as a person? I think that it was like
Exactly.
freaking her out a little bit. Yeah.
Well, exactly. And that's the thing. Like, it always freaks me out when somebody is so, like, in love and enamored with someone that they don't really know, someone who they haven't really spent time with. Tyler and Rachel have not spent a lot of time together. So for Tyler to have such strong feelings for her, to me, actually was a bit of a red flag. Dude, you don't really know this girl. Why are you saying that she changed your life? Like, what? Like, you haven't even really had any real moments with her, frankly. And so for him to be so, yeah, just so like, oh my God, like, I'm gonna love you forever. I was like, huh? To be honest, for me, that breakup, I feel like a lot of people, first of all, on the internet disagreed with me. A lot of people were very team Tyler. They were like, oh my God, Tyler's so sweet. Like, oh my gosh, how dare Rachel do this to him? He's such a good guy. Like, but I really do not like this idea that women owe men like reciprocity. Just because a guy really, really likes her, she should be nice to him and like, you know, whatever, accommodate him, give him a chance. Like, I really hate that idea. Like, I feel like people get really mad at girls for rejecting nice guys. And it's like, listen, if you don't have feelings, you don't have feelings. Like, we should not be getting mad at Rachel for like being honest. She doesn't owe him her time just because he's so in love with her. It doesn't mean that she owes him, you know, bringing him to hometowns, bringing him to whatever fantasy suites. Like, if she doesn't feel it, she doesn't feel it. So that's one piece of it. But the other piece of it is, I think Tyler knew she was about to break up with him. When they sat down on that bench and she was tearing up and starting to cry, and he like looked in her eyes, he could kind of see it, and then he starts going with, oh, I'm so in love with you, oh my gosh, like this is like, I'm so happy, this is changing my life. He like starts saying all of that stuff. And to me, it felt like he was like, I know she's gonna like break up with me, and she's like, I can see it, but maybe if I say I love you enough, she'll change her mind. So to me, it kind of almost felt manipulative almost. It was like he knew that she like kind of wanted to leave, and he was like trying to make her stay by saying, I love you, I'm so in love with you. Like, I don't know, I got a bad vibe from it. I didn't find him to be sweet and puppy dog like at all. I was like, ew. Like, it almost felt like he was trying to like make her like guilt her into keeping him, or like kind of like make her feel like, oh my God, we're so tied to each other. It felt a little bit like he was trying to use these big words to keep her in the relationship when it was clear that she wanted to go. I think she maybe dodged a bullet with him.
I can see what you're saying. In my take, I don't know if it was totally manipulative as much as it is that he is just that type of contestant that really believes in the fairy tale. And I think because he believes in it so strongly, he doesn't really understand his true emotions. Like, he believes he knows Rachel, but in that moment, I think it was a disconnect in like really being able to read her, because he doesn't know her as a person. So when she did sit down and she's teary-eyed and she's talking, maybe he was thinking, oh my God, she's really emotional for me. Let me tell her how much I am into her and what I think I should say, because she's about to meet my parents. I don't really know her. So let me rush these feelings. Like, I have these big feelings for this idea of Rachel. Let me tell her, because this is what you say before hometowns, right? Like, it kind of felt like he was following this narrative and pushing it along. And when it's not organic, when these feelings aren't totally strong, there's like this insincerity to it. And I think that's where he was coming from. Like, Disney prince, like, I'm charming and I, you know, am saying all the right things. I'm doing all of the right things, but you're not the right guy. So he wasn't able to really recognize that. So to me, it felt like, God, this guy is kind of a little bit not self-aware of what's happening in the moment.
Interesting.
And, you know, like, I don't know. I just thought he had I really do think that when she sat down, he had no idea how to read her, because he doesn't know her. But he was like, I think I say this right. I love you. Like, I'm falling for you. And she's like, oh my God, please stop.
Well, like, the face she made at that point, like, as soon as he said, like, I'm so in love with you, her face was like, like, that was her face. She like made this like devastated face, and at that point he should have stopped, but he kept going after she was like, I was like, why are you still talking, dude? Like,
I just feel like he just thought, this is where I have to be by this point of the season. Like, next time is fantasy suite, so I need to just tell her so that she knows how I feel about her. But
Yeah.
I do believe it was totally a projection. It wasn't about her and him not being able to read the room. Maybe there was an element of manipulation in terms of like, this is where I think I need to be.
I don't know. I'm curious what you all think. What do you think about Tyler's breakup? Do you think that he knew that she was going to break up with him and he was kind of just like trying to say whatever he could to stay around? Or do you think that he was truly just like not aware and just trying to like say all the right things because he's living in Disney Prince land? Like, let us know. I think both theories have validity here. Okay, so the last hometown for Rachel that we got to see was Tino. So Tino's hometown, well, was also kind of a train wreck as well. It was just a mess. Long story short, like, it seemed like Tino's family hated Rachel and just specifically hated this idea that they were going to try to get engaged at the end of this 2-month journey, which I think is fair. It's fair for them to think that that is an unrealistic timeline for two people to fall in love and be ready for marriage. I think that's fair, but wow, they were being really, really harsh and rude to her. They were like, this is your second time around. They're basically like, you're just marriage chasing. They were saying to Rachel, they were like, you just seem like a girl who like really wants to get married and it's not about Tino. Like, they were being really hard on her.
I think so too. And it was really bizarre how Tino it wasn't like he was gaslighting her, but he just like, yeah, they really liked you. And she was like, no, they didn't. They were saying all of these things. They were being so intense. They were giving her just this really intense like interrogation, and Tino was like, no, they really liked you. To me, this is Tino just kind of like, his energy just forces things. Like, they really liked you. We're meant to be together. Listen to like what's happening with us. And at the very beginning of the episode, Rachel had said how important it was that she got along with someone's family, that they really, like, she is marrying into this whole family structure. And for Tino's family, like, I definitely understand the skepticism, but I don't understand the rudeness of kind of questioning like her journey and how she is perceiving Tino in her life. And maybe, you know, your son, if you really trust your son, he wouldn't bring someone to the house if he wasn't serious about her.
I almost feel like they were more blaming Rachel, like the parents were blaming Rachel more than they were blaming Tino. They're like, you're just like this dumb reality TV show slut chasing marriage. I mean, that's essentially what they said to her, not in that exact phrasing. But in my head, I'm like, you were criticizing her for coming on a show to find love when your son just did the same thing. He just got on the same TV show to find love. And they were like, this is your second time around. As if her getting dumped by Clayton makes her a bad person. Like, what? Like,
or damaged goods. That's what it felt like. Like, if he didn't choose her, why should my son choose you? And it's like, hey, if they're in love, they're in love. She doesn't have to jump through hoops to like deserve your son. And to think like that, it says a lot about how they might view her and like how they might view how she has to do things for him to feel in love. So it just gave me really not good vibes.
I know. I thought it was pretty icky. And you're right. I thought it was so odd that Tino just like kind of glazed right over it, right? He was just like, no, it went well. They adored you. They adored you. And she was like, what? Like, Tino, be real. And I didn't really like that when she was like voicing those concerns, he was like, don't worry about it, I love you. Or don't worry about it, I'm falling in love with you. Like, he kind of like tried to use his I'm in love with you to like glaze over the thing that she was concerned about, which again, it's like, I don't know. I love you is a funny thing. It's like very nice to know that someone feels that way about you, but when it is used to try to get something out of someone or try to, you know, avoid something difficult, like, I love you can be manipulative, right? I love you can be, it can be a phrase that is used to somebody's harm, to harm someone, right? And in this case, like, Tino was using his I'm falling in love with you to kind of like sidestep Rachel's concerns. And she was like, I mean, whatever, she just likes Tino so much, so she was just like, okay, yeah, me too. Like, so she just kind of went with it and went with the moment. But you can tell she got in the car, she was like, wait, but I'm still upset. Like, I'm still thinking about this. So that's like, it was like Tino kind of squeezed his way out of the conversation, but Rachel still left feeling like, okay, wait, now I have to just deal with all these emotions alone. Like, I have to just deal with all of this, like, struggle and pain and, like, confusion and decision-making by myself. Yeah, that's just not how you want a partner to to respond when you have a concern or when you feel like you just went through something really, really difficult.
Exactly. It's like the foundation, there's so many cracks in it. And instead of kind of like rolling up your sleeves and being like, okay, what are the things that we can really address to make this foundation rock solid? He is papering it over with these very flimsy I love yous. Maybe you can walk past it and not really notice that there are things that are like fundamentally wrong in the relationship, because he's not really able to have hard, vulnerable conversations with her. He's like, please look at this, look at this, look at this, look at our connection. And it's like, yeah, totally, the connection is great, but family really matters. And if your family is already treating her like this, they're questioning her, they're not giving her any kind of grace, it says a lot about like how he was raised up, like how his parents view him, how they might view her. And to me, that's a really red flag.
You're right. It makes me wonder, how was Tino raised? And if Tino can look at this interaction, this was like a moment where I wanted Tino to swoop in and kind of like protect Rachel from his family that was being so rude to her. And Tino didn't do that. He was just like, nothing happened. It was good. It was good, right? Don't worry, it was good. And I was like, let us all know what you all thought about Tino. Did you think that he handled the situation well? What did you think about the way his parents were talking to Rachel and to Tino? Give us your thoughts down below. And by the way, if you are enjoying this conversation so far, do us a favor and hit that like button on this video. It does actually help us out a lot. Let's go ahead and move on to talking about Gabby's guys. So Gabby had just 3 guys that she brought to hometown. So it's Johnny, Jason, and Erich. She chose to only bring 3 guys as opposed to most people bring 4 guys to hometowns. So her first hometown was with Jason. So Jason, the hometown went pretty well. I think the main thing that was the point of interest in the hometown was that it came out that Jason feels like it's too soon for an engagement. He was basically like, I could never see myself getting engaged at this point. So that, was pretty dramatic. He used the word never. I was very shocked.
Yeah, I thought the exact same thing. For some reason, I just thought Jason was like Zach, just super steady, really liked her, didn't really have to question his feelings at all. And then for him to kind of have that turn around and just be so especially certain that he could never get engaged and tell his parents that, it was like, when are you going to have this conversation of Gabby?
Right.
Like, when are you going to let her into what hometown means. It symbolizes that you're ready to possibly engage to this, like get engaged to this person because you're introducing them to your parents.
Yeah, and I'll just loop Johnny into this as well, because basically the same thing came up with Johnny's as well. Yeah. On Johnny's hometown, it was the same thing. He was basically like, the engagement is the thing that freaks me out. With Jason, his reason actually kind of made sense to me. He was like, I haven't really had time to process everything that's going on, which to me speaks to actually, at least Jason has, it's coming from a place of self-awareness. He's like, this is such a whirlwind. So much is happening. I can't even think straight. I can't make a big decision in this environment, which to me, I was like, actually, that's smart. Good for you, Jason, to like actually recognize that about yourself. Now, in the context of the show, that is obviously like, that's like the most taboo thing to say on this on the show. It's like the biggest thing. It's like, oh my God, you don't want to get engaged? But I do think actually what Jason was saying made perfect sense to me. I feel like I would feel this way in the situation too. It's like, how can I make a decision that's going to change the rest of my life in this environment where I'm so stressed out, I'm overwhelmed, I'm like so emotional, I've been traveling so much, I'm probably not sleeping well. Like, how do I make such a big decision about my life? So I kind of understood what Jason was saying. I just, you're right. I'm just kind of like, are you gonna tell Gabby this? Like, are you gonna say anything? So that was my big thing with Jason. It didn't change how I feel about him. It just made me wonder if this is really gonna go anywhere. It might be like, he didn't even seem like his mom was kind of like, how would you feel without her? And he was like, I would be sad, but he didn't seem that, like, to your point,
he was really honest, because I think that, like, if I was in the situation, I would also maybe say the same things, but let the girl know, like, at least clue her into the fact that this is where you're coming from, and it's more pragmatic and less fantastical than maybe the other guys might be approaching it. Like, please let her know so that you can ground her in some reality, because she might mistakenly believe that he's kind of falling and like folding into this fairy tale as much as she is, but he has like both of his feet firmly planted on the ground.
Right.
Which I do think is attractive, but for the show, not very attractive, I think.
Exactly. It's like, it actually made me like Jason more that he is not the type of guy who wants to get engaged after 2 months, which, you know, to me, I'm like, okay, you're smart. Good.
Exactly.
But then at the same time, it's kind of like, okay, but you're in the context of the show where you are dating someone who expects that. You got to say something. You got to start talking. You got to start talking fast. And with Johnny, it was a very similar thing. Got to his hometown. Both Jason and Johnny, their hometowns were very sweet. It seemed like Gabby had good chemistry with both of them. I thought it went really well with both of them, both of their families. But the main thing with Johnny was the same thing. His family was like, what's the deal? Like, you are not the type of person who, like, just gives your heart away so quickly. And, like, Johnny starts saying, not that whereas Jason was kind of like, it's too soon for an engagement. I really, like, I'm falling for Gabby, but, like, it's just too soon to get engaged. Johnny was a lot more like, yeah, I don't know if I'm in a place in life where I would want to get engaged. It was a lot more, like, big picture. It was just kind of like, I'm not, like, really ready for an engagement, period. Not, I'm not ready for an engagement with Gabby. It was like, period, in general, I don't know that I want to get married at this time in my life, which to me was a little bit more concerning, because I was like, Johnny, what the heck are you doing on this show that you know it's going to end in an engagement? Why would you come on a show like this? I mean, we know why. Fame, clout. Like, we know why. It's like, you get to be on TV.
I was going to say, yeah.
We know why, but it's like, now you're here, you're at the top 3, and you're like, yeah, but by the way, I'm not really interested in marriage right now. It's like, what the heck? Like, versus Jason, I think Jason is interested in marriage, just not only 2 months into a relationship. So I think that's the big difference between the two of them.
Yeah, I thought the same thing too. I mean, Gabby's hometowns, I just felt like just not as dramatic as Rachel's, obviously. I do like that they're really pragmatic about it, but I just think that Gabby wants a little bit of the fairy tale too. Like, she also really wants to feel not just like realistically chosen, but like, I just love you so much that I'm really gonna be with you. And I just felt like both of these guys, I don't know, very grounded, very down to earth. But I did want a little bit more for her. Just like, please, like, make her feel special too, you know?
Yeah, I agree. Actually, so, you know, my thought last week was Johnny was my favorite of these 3. After this hometown, complete 180. I was like, absolutely not. Don't pick Johnny. Like, he seems like he is completely, like, he is going to dump you in a couple of months because he's just not really interested in commitment right now, which is not, doesn't make him a bad guy, but it does. If he continues down this path with Gabby, it does make him a bad guy, because you need to tell that girl that you are not interested in marriage. Like, what the heck?
I think so too.
Yeah.
And his parents, his parents saying to John, his parents basically being like, you know, if he chooses you, then he will choose you completely. I do believe that he will. I believe that he's the kind of person that knows what he wants. I just don't think it's Gabby, if I'm being totally frank.
I think you're so right. Johnny really fell in the ranks for me. Now, I mean, we'll talk about Erich next, but yeah, Johnny was my top contender. Now I think my top contender is Jason, but I'm not even sold on Jason either, so I'm a little bit like, Gabby, I think this is not it for you. I think none of these 3 are it for you. Oh, I'm so concerned. I'm so concerned. So let's talk about Erich. Erich's hometown was obviously so emotional. It was really devastating. It was Gabby's last hometown, and, you know, the big thing was that Erich's dad was dying of cancer, and we find out in memoriam at the end of the episode that he passed away after the filming. So it was definitely really emotional. Like, my heart goes out to Erich's family for sure. It was so sad to see it happen. I think that a lot of people really fell in love with Erich's family from this scene. I mean, how could you not? They were so strong, and so, you know, there was so much love and strength and, you know, compassion there. There's so much to love about them. And I think a lot of people took that love for Erich's family and started applying it to Erich. And I think that's where maybe I'm not fully there. I feel like I loved Erich's family, but that didn't necessarily mean that I suddenly like Erich more. But I think a lot of people disagreed. I think the internet changed their mind really quickly about Erich from this episode. I think most people are now, oh my God, Team Erich, totally in love with Erich and Gabby's vibe and relationship.
Listen, I still have a lot of my apprehensions about all of these guys, just because I think that the show set them up for very little time to get to know each other. So it's so hard for me to still have this concrete opinion of like, this is who I think they could end up with. But I felt like out of all of the guys that Gabby met, his family kind of matched with her family. Energetically, it made a lot of sense. And I do think that like, I was very unsure about like Erich's affections, but for his dad to be very sick and then for him to introduce like a partner to his dad, it does show this level of commitment in terms of like, he's not going to do it unless he's serious. Like, you don't play around with the fact that like someone could be passing away soon. You don't say things that you wouldn't really mean just because you want to fit into a show narrative. That would be absolutely manipulative and crazy for him to do that. So for him, I did feel like, okay, there is this sincerity, like, hey, I'm actually really serious about this too. Like, I am introducing you to the people that really matter in my life. And it just so happens that she just fit into that family as if she's like meant to be a part of that type of family. Like, the grandparents were just really sweet. The parents were really sweet. He was very affirming the entire day. It was exactly, I think, the kind of hometown you would want to feel confident about fantasy suites and then being chosen at the end. Whereas, like, I still don't know if I'm like 100% for him, but I do know that I'm not questioning his intentions anymore.
I completely agree with that. I think that, you know, he brought Gabby because he does really have feelings for her, and I don't question his intentions anymore either. What I do think is that the thing with loss, the thing with death, is that, you know, death can bring out the best in even the worst people, right? When a loved one is dying, you suddenly, like, you show up. All of a sudden, you're like, I'm gonna, like, be there. I'm gonna tap into these feelings. I'm gonna, like, I feel like anyone in this situation would act the way Erich did. And so it's not to say that Erich did anything wrong or anything like that. I don't actually feel like this told us anything to me about Erich. I think Erich's family seems amazing, and I think they seem incredible. I just don't think that, like, Gabby walked away saying, like, this clarified my feelings for Erich. And my issue is that, because you're right, even everything you just said, it was like, Gabby fits in with his family. The family is so wonderful, but like, the family being wonderful is not the same as, I don't know, Gabby and Erich being wonderful for each other. I worry that Gabby had this big feeling with his family and had this such an emotional experience with his family, and she's gonna kind of confuse that with having big feelings for Erich, because it's not the same to just fit in with someone's family. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're gonna be a good match with their son. This is going to obviously pull Erich to the next week because it was such a positive experience for Gabby and for everyone. For Erich, I'm sure it was positive for him to be able to bring Gabby into this, and I feel like it's going to pull them together. But my concern is that it's getting pulled together over loss and death is a confusing thing, because everyone is going to kind of rise to their best self in the face of loss, in the face of death, right? But after that has passed, in the next chapter of your life, will Erich still be the stand-up guy that he was in that moment? I don't really know, because we saw how he was the last couple of weeks, and this moment doesn't tell us enough about Erich, really. And I think Gabby's gonna make it into like something that is telling for her and for their relationship, when I don't actually think that it is.
Yeah, I think that it's also too, like, I have to always throw in this little factor of, it's so hard for me to get this like 360 view into him as a person. It's like, because when I saw him with his family, it's like, okay, I think this is his personality, and surprisingly, it's very similar to Gabby's in a way, like the way that they both come off like really effervescent and light. So it's like, is production painting him in a specific way? Or are they kind of like failing Gabby's relationship with him? Because I think about like Rachel Lindsay's season of Brian, he just got the worst edit, and he was not, like, to the very end, you just never really believed him. He just seemed like a Casanova all the way through. And with Erich, I don't know. I do think that you're right. Just because you get along with someone's family, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're meant to be with them. But it does say a lot about how they're grown up. And it does say a lot about how they're raised and how they treat each other, and the kind of values that he might have intrinsically that aren't being teased out by editing.
Are you team Erich?
I have like no idea.
Are you team Erich of the three?
I have no idea. It's not like I'm team Erich, I'm team Gabby. So I just want her to feel happy. And if it's him, then it's him, you know?
The only thing that I will add to that is like, that's the other thing that I don't like about Gabby and Erich's relationship. Not his mom is lovely. Is, because you're right, I want Gabby to feel like she's gonna be in a relationship where she feels her best and that she feels incredible. Like, that's what I want. But like, even what she said to Erich when they were having that romantic, they were each saying that they're falling in love with each other, she was like,
I think I've like always wanted to be with someone like you, but just never knew if it was possible.
she's always like putting him on this pedestal and self-deprecating when she's around him. She has this like, she doesn't do this around Johnny, she doesn't do this around Jason, but around Erich, for some reason, she has him like up here and puts herself down to kind of like elevate him, which I don't like that. I don't know why she has that instinct with him, and I don't know why it's coming out in that relationship in a way that it's not with the others, but she keeps like kind of, yeah, putting herself down to make Erich seem so great, and I'm so concerned about their dynamic. I don't know, so I get what you're saying, but why don't you all let us know, what do you all think about Erich? Has this episode changed your mind about him? Are you still questioning? Where are you at? Like, we need to discuss. I need to hear other people's opinions, because I'm still so conflicted. I still have so many concerns about him. Yeah. If you watched until this point of the video and you are not subscribed yet, make sure that you subscribe to our channel. We do this every week. We are recapping every single episode of The Bachelorette this season, and we'll be recapping Bachelor in Paradise when it starts next month, very soon. So make sure you are subscribed so you can follow along in this conversation. You can watch this video next. We'll put it up above. This is our thoughts on Rachel and Gabby's top 4 from last week. We went into depth about each and every one of these guys for Gabby and for Rachel and talked about our thoughts about them. So watch that one next, and we will see you all next week.
Bye.
Bye.